Hey, what's up, comrades? Hope everyone's doing great. We just watched Frozen Bonds, which is a movie of ReZero that takes place between season 1 and 2. And I was going to include it in the first season, but that first season was already like 2.5 hours of me talking about it. So I figured I'd just do a short little video here, and the next week we'll have ReZero season 2 to talk about for another probably 2 hours or so. We'll see how it goes. One of the guys I worked with who loves ReZero season 1 said ReZero season 2 is not as good. So since the first season I was not that impressed with, we'll see what happens. The movie I actually enjoyed. It was a movie. It was an anime movie. It was pretty good. You don't need to know anything about anything to understand what's going on in this movie, which is pretty great. Not gonna lie. Like it's just like an introductory movie. There's like one scene that kind of gives you like an idea of stuff, but the whole thing takes place like it's like a prelude. Like you could really watch this thing before you watch any of the seasons of ReZero, and I honestly don't think it would spoil too much, because like everything you learn about Emilia that is like important for the story, like her being like half-elf, silver-haired, purple-eyed that people don't trust, you find out like within like the first episode of the ReZero season 1, which is like an hour-long episode anyway. Okay, so what is Frozen Bonds about? So Frozen Bonds takes place like an X amount of years before Subaru comes to whatever the fuck this world's called, and it just deals with Emilia and Puck and their relationship and just her living out in the forest. Like we learned multiple times throughout season 1 that she like grew up in a forest and was like alone, and then like she decided to come out, and that's when she got like tied into like this whole, well, I don't know, X amount of time went by, and then she got pulled into the whole like secession crisis, and then Roswell picked her up and like sponsored her, and has been hanging out with like the Demon Twins and Beatrice and everything since then. All right, and then Subaru shows up at some point. And so we can see why she has such an adverse reaction to being called a witch, even though it still doesn't make any fucking sense, because in the first episode when he's like, what's your name? She tells him that it's Satella, the witch, which is a lie, obviously. And we know that from the first episode just because the way she says it is like very like sus, if you will, as the kids would say. But she has like a very adverse reaction in this. And honestly, there's really not that much to talk about in this movie. It's very action-packed, which is good. And there's a lot of like I would say this movie is very good. Like if you just want to show somebody like an anime movie that is like cute, I would say it's definitely for teenagers. The whole ReZero thing is like a teenager level. Like I wouldn't show this to my like 7-year-old daughter per se, but because there's like blood and violence and some talk about rape and stuff, but it's very minuscule. Right, it's just it's like a hard, dark world out there. But most of it is just like relationship between Puck and Emilia and how it grows and stuff that goes on there. And then there's this other guy, Masquia, I think it's Masquia, who's like this fire horse, and he's a real asshole. He's there to like pronounce judgment on Emilia for like, I never fully grasped what like his problem is. I know it's because she resembles and has like the blood, or is like somehow like. It seems like this whole thing with like Emilia, not like she looks like the witch Satella, but it also seems like she does have some sort of like powers of the witch, and you know, what's his fuck, the priest, the bishop of Sloth. He makes some comments about her being like a vessel for the witch to be resurrected. Right, and then we know, like, in the grand scheme of things, there was, like, 7 witches, I want to say, 6 or 7 witches, including Satella, and that Satella, like, ate them all to gain all their powers, and so maybe she's related to, like, a different witch somehow in the line. But, so Emilia, what is she doing? She's just hanging out in this forest. Well, I guess the movie starts off, and there's this family that's going to be attacked by this big, like, gorilla monster monkey thing from, like, Dragon Quest. And then Dragon Quest 2 specifically, near the end there, in that horrible spot you got to grind before you get to the last boss. There's those, like, monkey guys with, like, the horns in their head. This is a similar thing. It's kind of like an ogre monster giant thing. Anyway, so Emilia shows up in just, like, rags and, like, is, like... tells the monster to go away, and then she like kills the monster, but then something she does also causes like ice to transfer to like the humans that she was trying to protect, and they're partially it's because they are like screaming at her that she's a witch, and she like loses control. She then wakes up later. Well, and then it goes to like present day ReZero season 1, like past the point where she's gone on like a date with Subaru, and they're having like another one of those like Frozen festivals, like from the first movie that took place like halfway through the first season. And she's just like staring out at the statues, thinking, and Puck's like, you okay? He's like, was your date that bad? And she's like, no, that has no. I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about something else. And then we go back to the past again, and she's got these like statues she's taking care of, and we find out that these statues are like elves. So she grew up in like this elf village, and then they all got frozen, and the whole forest got like frozen because of some mysterious reason that we'd never get like firm confirmation. But it seems like she somehow was involved with the whole freezing incident, and that at some point she's just out exploring, and she like finds crystals and takes them to a nearby town, and they're all scared of her because she's a witch. But the guy who like trades for stuff, he'll like take the crystals and like give her boots and give her food and stuff. And so we get a scene of that, and she's just kind of dealing with it. And like every day she wakes up, takes care of the elves, and then holy cow, look at this motorcade. Sorry, there's like 12 police bikes following this car. Anyway, so then. And then Puck shows up, and they chit chat a little bit here and there, and he's like going off to do stuff, and then he keeps coming back. And then at some point, she's just like out and about exploring and meandering about. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of just kind of sitting on the scene and sitting on her and Puck just kind of like chatting about nothing, and her just like exploring and all that good stuff. And then at some point, she sees like this burned down hut, and she's like, oh no, there's like a blight around here. And then these douchebags come up, and they talk about the war between the beastmen and the elves, and how the beastmen won because they're superior to like regular humans, and that since she's an elf, she's going to be fucked. And she's like, you better get out of here. That's not safe for you to be here. Like, oh, what are you going to do, little girl? And then they attack her, and she beats the shit out of them until there's just 3 left. And she's like, this is your last warning. You better get the fuck out of here. There's some bad business here. You're all going to die. And they like laugh at her. And then another one of those like big gorilla ape monster thingies pops up, and it's even bigger than the before, and it just fucks like these bandits up. And then she like freezes it, but then she like does the overboard thing where she's like freaking out, and then it like her ice magic that freezes the inside of the gorilla like goes out the back, and it turns red, and then everyone starts growing these red things like the guy, like the family she killed before, and she's losing it. And then she calls out for Puck, and Puck's like, I'm here, you should have called sooner, silly girl. And so he like gets her to go into like a mindfulness trance, pass out, and then cures everybody. And then she tells the guy they better get the fuck out of there and not come back. And then she wakes up later, and she's like, Puck, oh. And he's like, hey, you're okay, don't worry about it, I took care of it, you're gonna be fine. And then we get a scene elsewhere where the main bandit guy is talking to some old man in like a town somewhere, and he's like, I'm gonna go back out there and I'm gonna get revenge on that bitch and all this stuff. And then the guy's like, I don't know if you should. And then Puck shows up. He's like, hey, motherfucker. Like, your old man friend here is a lot smarter than you are. And then he, like, kicks that guy out. The old man's like, I got a question for you. Should I suppose that the whole forest is your domain? And he's like, you bet your ass. And then the bandit guy's like, I'm still going to do it. I'm going to get my revenge. Fuck that guy. Fuck the spirit. And then he gets attacked by fire. Anyway, Emilia's out and about just doing stuff. She has another conversation with Puck. And he's like, I got to go take care of something. You be careful. And she's like, you be careful. And then she runs into this, she sees this like manticore chimera kind of like monster wandering the woods. She's like, oh no, it's one of those like witch fiends or whatever. And then she sees this black goo, and the black goo eats up that witch fiend like real good. And she's like, fuck. And at some point, Puck's like, I'm going to introduce you to some like lesser spirits you can make contracts with so that you can have some more protection when I'm not around. So she does. So she has like 5 of these little ice spirits, blue spirits. And so she's like, I need your help so this thing doesn't touch me, because if it touches me, it's going to eat me up good. And so they freeze up the black goo, and then she like cuts off a part of it, takes it to Puck, and he's like, oh, hey, it's like a black serpent or something. And he's like, you didn't destroy it, though. This is only a little piece of it. And she's like, oh, no. He's like, yeah, it's out there doing crazy shit. And she's like about to run off and get it. And he's like, oh, you can't chase it now. Just be careful. We'll figure it out. And at this point, this is when we get introduced to like Horseman, Fire Horse, Masquia, and he talks like a robot, and he talks about judgment and judging, and Puck's trying to like be like, hey, get out of my frozen forest, and he's like, there's judgment here, and Puck's like, there's no judgment here, I'm just like, I like this frozen forest, if you got something with it, you and me can fight. And then it leaves, and then Puck's like kind of concerned. He's like, this could bode ill well later on. So a bit later on, we get there's like more chit chat, more just kind of random bullshit, like them hanging out, talking about stuff. And then later on, Puck gets accousted by the fire horse again, and this time it means business. Meanwhile, Emilia's like out and about. She hears like this fight going on between like the spirits, because they're having like a full-on brawl, and it's making noise. So Emilia runs out with her spirits, and then she sees a red spirit, and she's like, what's going on, red spirit? And the red spirit takes her to like the black goo, and it's like now become like a whole river of black goo, and she's like, oh no, I got to do something about this. And so with the help of the spirit, she has like a battle with that. And so we go back and forth a little bit with Puck fighting Masquia or whatever. And then and then Emilia taking care of the black goo, which she does. She takes care of it pretty good. She like freezes the shit out of it with the help of the spirits and like destroys it. And she's like, hooray. And then she gets like attacked by like a fire attack, and then the spirits like shield her from like this laser fire blast, but it destroys the shield and kills the spirits. And she's like, no. And then Masquia shows up, and he's like, and he shows up in the form of the bandit who's gonna like rape her, which is like fucked up, Masquia. You're kind of an asshole. Anyway. So he's like, I'm here to pass judgment, something. You're a half demon. You're an evil witch. You got the witch evil powers, blah, 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 blah. That she's like, who am I? Like, what's going on? Tell me more. And it's like, I do not know. I'm just here to pass judgment and shit. And so they argue back and forth for a little bit. And then she calls for Puck. And then Puck shows up. And he's like, finally, you called me on time. Jesus. And she's like, Puck, help. And he's like, oh, yeah, no problem. And then the Masquerade's like, you have no power left. How are you going to do anything? And then Puck's like, whatever, bitch. And just kicks the shit out of him. And it's like, all right, everything's great. And then Herman, Emilia are talking, and he's like, oh, you're not a half demon, you're a half elf, and like the people in the forest are elves, and you are different, but there's nothing wrong with you, and you just want to live and be happy and whatnot. And she's like, hooray. And then he gets like shot the shit out of because there's like more Masquias. There's like 4 or 5 of them. And then, like, we are here to pass judgment, and they cast, like, a fire circle around them, and then they're screaming at her, and she's screaming back, and then Puck's like, make a contract with me, and she's like, what? And then the fire spirit's like, you can't do that. And then Puck's like, oh, you always abide by the rules, and you know if there's a spirit contract going on, you have to shut the fuck up and wait for it to happen. And the Masquia's like, I guess that's true. Because he allows it to happen. So then Puck and Emilia make a contract, and that's when Puck turns into like his giant wolf form, and then his giant wolf form like kicks the shit out of Masquia, and then he kills all of them but like the last one, and then the last one turns into like giant horse guy, and then they have like a kaiju battle that goes really quick because Puck like kicks the shit out of him like real fast, and then he's like, no, and then like the whole forest is like whatever, and then Puck and Emilia have like a whole conversation about how he's going to start calling her Leah, and then about how he's like her father. She's like, you're like my father, I love you. And he's like, oh, that's so funny, that's what you said last time. We're like, what? And so when she first woke up after she was frozen, so everyone got frozen including her, and then he showed up, like unfroze her even though he wasn't supposed to the first time, and they had like a conversation, and he was crying about not being there to help her out and all this stuff, and she's like, you're like my dad, I mean, you're like a father because you're here to protect me and do all this stuff. And he's like, you're like my daughter, that's so good. And then that's like the past again. So then we jump back to like the past, the current past in the story. And they like, you're my daughter, you're my father. Oh, it's so sweet. And they, you know, what are we going to do now? And it's like, oh, we'll get out of here and like have some adventures, and you can live your life, and I just want you to be happy. And they like are crying and holding each other and smiling. And that's the movie. It's pretty good, not gonna lie. There's not too much of like kaiju battles or magic battles or anything. There's a little bit here and there, but the movie moves quick. It's like maybe like an hour and a half, and it like cruises. Everything's utilized well. The movie has time to sit on certain things and sit on relationships and sit on kind of the consequences of some of this stuff. And it really helps because Emilia has like barely been in the first season. So I feel like this really helps establish her and Puck and their relationship. And like, she's actually very powerful as like just a ice magic user. And then she has a spirit thing and she has Puck. So she's like extremely powerful, which before I was kind of like, does she have no powers? Is she completely relying on these like spirits and whatnot? But like, no, the spirits just like amplify her already like pretty intense magic. But the problem is like all this magic she has, she even says some comments. She's like, I have like unlimited power, like right below the surface, but I'm scared to like utilize it because it's so strong. And it's like, oh, that's good. I'm sure that will come up later. Well, we'll see if season 2 is okay. If season 2 is at the same quality as season 1 writing wise, then it will probably come up, because season 1 was written pretty well, even though I wasn't super into it, and it's a little too much of like it has a little too much of like Shinji Ikari in Subaru, and not enough of Asuka Langley in Emilia, if that makes sense. So like there's not enough like mecha battle. There's not enough fighting, and with mecha there's not enough just fighting, like anime shonen fighting, and there's like too much like whiny bitch in the first season for like me to truly like it. Like Evangelion has like a nice mixture where Shinji is like a little cunt, but at the same time there's like awesome kaiju battles, and there's awesome like mecha battles, and then Asuka Langley Soyu is like peak waifu material, and so it's just like excellent across the board. But yeah, so that's the ReZero movie. This is definitely like I recommend. Very good. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and yeah, go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.